things are starting to heat up in Project 1918. With fabrication and deconstruction, Ian opens the curtain on the inside of the museum. Then we get to work, removing the big and the small from the Nash Quad, the story of Renault and the machines that shaped the battlefield.
So basically, we're creating rivets out of bolts. So we're welding them up and machining them down to basically look like the rivets that are on the tank. I say mind your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll take that ugly weld, machine it down and create the right diameter.
So I'll pull this one out. This is an original. And what are we looking at here? Oh, we're looking at the bolts that hold the armor plate together. And you can see all the bolts here, and you see we're missing a couple. So Ken, our fabricator, our metal shop fabricator, took a bolt head. This was this hexagon bolt head, welded some extra metal to it, and then he fashioned it to imitate these bolts. So now we have some replacement. We only need 3 of them for this heavy armor plate, but the rest of the vehicle has got different size bolts. So there's smaller ones, and you can see there's an empty hole here. There's 1 there, and we're missing 1 and 2 on the other side, so we got to make 3 more of this particular size. And then you see there's another style of bolts here holding this top armor plate down, and we're missing probably about 4 of those. There's a couple more empty holes on the other side. So the vehicle is in excellent condition, but it's just missing a couple of the accessories.
And we're lucky to be able to make them too, right?
Very lucky. We have some excellent fabricators in this museum who do outstanding work.
That's a rivet.
Okay, so what I'm doing right now is removing the prop shaft from the transmission to the front differential, and I'm taking the bolts out here out of this flange, and I'll also end up having to take bolts of a flange down there, and then the prop shaft will just come out. Yeah, it's just a flange plate with a nut, so it's in fine shape. Okay, let's blow that flame out. Let's see how we did. Off the spline shaft there. Took a little bit of heat, persuasion, but she's off. Okay, so once that arm is removed off here, then this whole steering box assembly can be removed. And then further taken apart on the bench. Yep, she moved the bed.
There you go.
Got it. So I heated it up to expand it.
Yep.
If I put the water on, it causes a thermal shock.
Oh, okay.
Which will loosen the threads up.
So he heats the metal cherry and it expands it. And put the tool in and turn it, and it starts to shrink again. Pour the water on to shock it. Now he's going to try and turn it again with an improvised tool. So I'm going to hold the other end of the shaft while he's pushing.
Hey
everybody, I'm Ian Lawrence. I'm a volunteer here with the Canadian Tank Museum. You may remember me from previous episodes of Project 1918. I've been here since 2025. After I retired from the Canadian Forces, I was a member of the Ontario Regiment from 1988 till 2025 when I started here. So what we have here is the AVGB Cougar, Armored Vehicle General Purpose. I served on one of these for, well, at least half of my career until they were retired in 2005. Driving one of these was way better than a job at McDonald's, a job in the mall. So at 18 years old, I joined the Canadian Forces because I wanted a job that was different. And this was different. Hey, let's take a look inside. Come on in. So the AVGP Cougar, crew of 3. You got a driver down here. I'm sitting in the commander seat, and Casper's in the gunner seat. So while I was a driver on this vehicle for a lot of years, by the time it retired, I didn't end up getting into the gunner's or commander's position. But these vehicles were toured in Bosnia. I didn't actually go on tour, unfortunately. Life never took me that way. It took me other directions, but that's okay. I served 35 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it because I got to do stuff like this. My older brother and I, Nigel, he's the guy that you see a lot in the Project 1918 videos. We served together. That was another joy of my career. I get to hang out with my brother, and I get to hang out with my brother here, and we get to work together and continue on that relationship.
Did you serve with him?
Yep.
You did?
So he joined before I did and retired before I did. But yeah, for a large portion of my career, we were serving together. Before I retired, a friend, Harvey Brown, gave me some great advice. He said, quitting the Canadian Forces is difficult, cold turkey. You got to have something to do. You could join cadets, which he ended up joining cadets and working with kids, which is very rewarding and all of those things. But here in Oshawa, we have this other option, the Canadian Tank Museum, which started off as the Ontario Regiment Museum. So you can come here, hang out with people that you used to work with in the Canadian Forces, meet new people from all different walks of life, and to hang out and work on the vehicles that I served on. And other vehicles. We've got British, German, American, Russian. We've got it all. And this is a great place to spend a Saturday. I joined Project 1918. First of all, my brother asked. He's the project lead for the M1917. And one of the first things he did was ask me if I wanted to join and work with him. Second, what a great way. It's a 108-year-old tank. Who wouldn't want to be on that project? Everybody that's on the project had to apply and be selected and they were selected for the various skills that they have. Right? I try to pride myself in being a little detail-oriented to make sure that we're getting everything labeled, everything gets recorded, pictures get taken so that when we put it all back together, we know how it goes back together. Let's go check out the Iltis. See you in a sec. This is the Bombardier Iltis. Originally the Volkswagen Iltis, but contracted to Bombardier to build them for the Canadian Forces. They built thousands. We had tons. A little tip, the mirrors are on backwards. But I served in this. This was the first vehicle that I was trained to drive. It's standard, 4 cylinders, simple, basic vehicle, great for training, message delivery. We used it for light reconnaissance, what we would call mud recce. We would take the tarps off, superstructure off in the back, load it up with a driver, commander, and a radar operator in the back, and all of our gear, and off we would go, right? Ugh. It's a bit of a bathtub, unibody construction, but you can beat it up and it will keep going. It took the punishment that we probably shouldn't have given, but we did. As young soldiers, we would drive around and drive it like you stole it was the policy, and it just keep coming. These things are workhorses. They're great.
Rick, what are you guys taking apart right now?
We're getting ready to pull the transmission. So there's 6 mounting bolts, and we're working on getting those removed right now. So it could be a bit of a challenge. Might have to crank up. So the drive shaft from the engine goes from here, where the engine normally would set, through this hole, and over to this flange. Gets mounted to this flange. Then in turn, the power goes through the transmission, and it powers this output and the output at the back, which in turn power the front wheels and the rear wheels. This is a full-time 4-wheel drive vehicle. So you can't select 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. It's in 4-wheel drive all the time.
So what's happening to her now she's off?
Now it's off. It'll have to be stripped down and inspected. We already know there's one bad gear in there, so it's probably going to have to be remade. But we'll give it a complete inspection and put it back together.
What are you doing, Ian?
This piece here is not original to the vehicle. Somebody welded it on, maybe for towing, whatever it is. If you look at pictures of Nash Quads, you won't find it anywhere. So we're just going to take this off. I'm trying to take it off a little shy of the weld, and then we'll grind down the weld to bring it back to what it should be.
Working on taking off the front suspension. The front shackle bolts have been removed. The rear ones are being a bit more obstinate. They don't really want to come out. There's a bit of a spline there that holds in place so it doesn't turn, and it's stopping it from coming out. So we're slowly escalating force to avoid damage.
All right, so when we were talking about it before, getting these castle nuts off with the cotter pins were brittle and snapped, but the castle nuts were seized. So as we've talked about before, increasing levels of violence, brute force wasn't working, so we're using an induction heater.
Ignorance.
Add heat into the nut, then using a wrench with a hammer to tap, 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 and then hitting it with the big pneumatic impact gun. Here we go. This is the last one. You do want to keep things ventilated as well as possible because we're going to get some paint burning off.
Does this tool just heat it up? What does it do?
It
creates an electrical current on the inside and actually heats up that surrounding air and the surrounding space. That's why when you take a look here, you can see that any discoloration where the paint's being taken away, it's just, you can see down to bare metal, so it's very localized, whereas if you put a flame, it can be a lot wider area, so this is very focused using electricity and induction.
The induction heater only heats up metal inside the coil.
The other cool thing about it is the cotter pins are softer metal. So even if there's a little bit of it sticking out, if you can get that turning, it just bypasses it, snaps it right off, or even melts it. Right?
You done all the other side as well?
Yep.
So we freed up that side and we just lubricated it, oiled it up.
This thing does come with a warning if you have a pacemaker.
He's just gonna brush away the charred paint. You can tell that we're a charity by the quality of our brush.
You put a hammer on one side, and you hit on this side.
Oh.
So what you do is you put a hammer on one side, and whatever side you can get the most swing on,
Well, we can always swing one way.
you hit it, right? You hit it hard enough that you make this hammer bounce. And what it does, it's an old Malcolm trick, so it's an old school trick. What it does is it makes like these sonic waves that'll actually break up rust and stuff inside.
Amazing shit.
So if you do it a couple times, I'm not saying it's gonna work, but it might work.
Let's give her a shot.
But you gotta hit it hard enough that you actually make this hammer bounce.
Let's see that one.
There you go, got a washer there? Let me put them together.
Here's one.
There's the knurling.
Good condition.
It's good condition.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah, sure. So now what I do? So I would change that castle nut to a real nut.
Okay.
Can I get the pieces that you broke, please?
That's what we just got out of it. It's a knurling right here that slowed it down coming out. That knurling's probably there so you can tighten the nut up on this end right over here.
Okay, I'm gonna take this down.
Like that.
Tap, tap, tapping it.
That's a maximum extension. If you break it, you just take it
There
out.
you go. Done.
Look at the rust on that one.
Yeah.
That's more rust than any of the other ones.
And I don't even see.
See the hole? So what we're doing here is we're removing the front springs and the front axle. And we've had to use a bit of force here. That's why you heard a bit of smashing with the hammer. Sometimes you just need to increase the amount of force coming out. So we have pulled out the... so this is one of the eyelet bolts that goes in through here. There is knurling going on right here and knurling on the inside here. You can see it right here. This is steel on steel. You can tell it's steel on steel. This is steel. But what I want to show you is back here on the rear springs. The spring eye here is steel, but it's also got a bushing on the inside. You can see right here, it doesn't stick. It doesn't stick. So that is a bronze bushing right there. And the bronze was because this is going to move, but it's a very heavy duty unit. And this would fit right here. And it just rotates like that. But the knurling right here, you can see the knurling right here, the knurling holds this bolt in place. So it's this spring eyelet that moves on the eye bolt that goes like that. So the bolt is held in place and the spring goes like this to rotate and it takes up torsion all through here. Okay, and that took a little bit of force, but we pulled it out like this. We were careful not to wreck the straight knurling right here. The knurling is probably on here because the knurling would help with assembly because they'd push it on, tap it in, and they could just tighten the nut up on one side. That's probably why the knurling is going on right here. We have, so here's how the spring works here. Set this stuff to the side. So here's how the oiling system works on this one. So the idea is to get some lubrication into the eye of the spring right here. So you pull this is spring loaded and the oil goes in here, and I think this is drilled out. It comes out here, which come out in the middle of the eye right here, and then it just distributes itself right in there. So when you want to lube up these springs, nowadays you have lithium grease and things like that on newer cars to reduce that kind of friction. But when you want to do this one, you just pull this sleeve out and this all goes together. That's how it lubricates the eyelets. And that was bronze. You notice there are some bronze in certain places on these vehicles. They're bearings, they are some shims, shim material, but they're not gears and they're not bolts.
Welcome back to Project 1918. Last time we went over the history of the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company and its development of the Model 4017. the Quad that served with the Canadian forces and its allies during the First World War. Today, we're going over the history of the parent company behind the genesis of the M1917 here. This is the history of Renault Frères. The story begins on the 12th of February 1877, when Louis Renault is born into a wealthy Parisian family that owns factories specializing in button making for the textile business. As a young boy, Louis was always fascinated with how the factory equipment worked, and as he grew up, he developed an interest in vehicles. In 1898, he actually purchased a motorized tricycle, modified it into a quadricycle, and on Christmas Eve of that year, he demonstrated his first car for 12 friends on Rue Le Pic, which is a long, winding road leading up to the hill where Basilique du Sacré-Cœur de Montmartre is located in Paris. His friends were all extremely impressed, and he got 12 orders for his own Type A voiturette, or literally small car, that very evening. And within the first year, he obtained 71 orders total. In a design sense, the voiturette was pretty revolutionary for its time. At this point, most early cars used a chain or a belt to connect the engine to the wheels, which was relatively inefficient in terms of transferring power. The voiturette, instead, had the engine, clutch, transmission, and differential all connected in more or less a straight line using mechanical linkages and gears, resulting in very little energy loss between the engine and the road. With a 1.75 horsepower engine and a top speed of 45 kilometers an hour, the voiturette was pretty impressive in that context. There's actually now still a preserved example of the voiturette on display at the Château de Compiègne in France. To secure the rights to his design, Louis files a patent for his direct drive system on the 9th of February 1899, which earns him a whopping 3.5 million francs by the time it enters the public domain in 1914. Just over 2 weeks later, on the 25th of February, Louis establishes the Société Renault Frères with his brothers Marcel and Fernand. Sadly, a dream team of the three brothers was not to be, because Marcel, known for his interest in racing, dies in an accident in 1903, and Fernand dies shortly thereafter from illness in 1909, leaving Louis in sole control of the company. In 1911, he visits Henry Ford at his factory in Highland Park in Detroit, and is inspired by Henry's concept of the assembly line that he's applied in manufacturing the Model T. So Louis returns to France with a transformed mindset and decides to implement a similar system in his factories, and fully adopts the Taylorism manufacturing method by 1913. With the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, the Renault factory made a quick shift over to war production, making ambulances for the French army. Its Type AG taxis also become famous later that year when they transport 4,000 French soldiers to the front lines of the First Battle of the Marne, where the French army and the British Expeditionary Force thwart the Imperial German Army's attempts to advance on and capture Paris. It becomes a great symbol of French patriotism and ingenuity in a time of need. Around a couple years later, in July 1916, Louis meets with a French artillery officer, Colonel Jean-Baptiste Eugène Estienne, who had foreseen the importance of an artillery piece being able to move faster around the battlefield, overwhelm enemy positions, and allow infantry to break through. So Estienne proposes his idea with Louis to create a small armored vehicle that could be produced in mass numbers and do just that, swarm those enemy positions and break through their lines. On the 30th of December 1916, Louis has a prototype of his tank, the Renault FT, which was only given that name based on the factory's naming designation system, ready for demonstration trials with the French army. There's some skepticism about its usefulness at first, but orders quickly balloon from 100 to 150 in February 1917 to over 3,650 later that year, with total production amounting to 3,950 by the war's end. The FT, for that matter, is immensely successful at what it does. It's deployed on the battlefield for the first time on the 31st of May 1918 during the charge at Chaudun, and it's immensely successful at overwhelming German positions and thwarting their attack. For his contributions to the war effort, Louis was hailed as a national hero, and with his company doing fairly well now, he decided it's time to expand. In 1919, he acquires a portion of the Île Séguin, an island in the middle of the Seine River in Paris, and builds a factory there encompassing 11.5 hectares of land and employing 30,000 employees. Over the next 18 years, he continues to buy up further portions of the island, expanding the factory in turn, all the while producing some immensely popular cars for the civilian market, including the Prima 4 and Celta 4 4-cylinder engine vehicles, the 6-cylinder Viva Sport, and the 8-cylinder Nerva Sport. Dark times come for Louis and his factory, though, when the Nazis invade France in 1940. Instead of fleeing the country, Louis opts to stay, and via the Vichy regime, he opts to collaborate with the occupying German forces. Over the next 4 years, the Renault factory produces over 34,000 vehicles for the German Wehrmacht. The Allied forces are aware of the Renault factory and its importance to the German occupation and war machine, and they attacked the factory several times with heavy bombers, especially on the 3rd and 4th of March 1942, where around 80% of the factory's facilities are destroyed. Following the liberation of Paris in 1944, Charles de Gaulle's provisional government arrests Louis for industrial collaboration on the 23rd of September, and then just over a month later, on the 24th of October, Louis dies while awaiting trial. Allegedly, the main cause of death is cited as uremia. However, there have been accusations leveled that he was beaten and tortured while he was in custody awaiting trial, and that was a leading contribution to his cause of death. As punishment for Louis' collaboration with the Nazi regime, the French government nationalized all Renault assets in 1945. That being said, the company barely skips a beat, though, being back on the public market in October 1946 with the release of the 4CV, and the company has since gone on to maintain a fairly sound reputation for good quality civilian vehicles and setting momentous motorsport records. In 1979, Groupe Renault even buys a stake in the American Motors Corporation, having a presence in the market in North America, but that is fairly short-lived as they withdraw in 1987. As recently as 2011, the Renault family filed a lawsuit against the French government for the company's nationalization, seeking 100 million euros in compensation. However, the lawsuit was rejected by a Paris court on the 11th of January 2012, saying that the nationalization of the company was justified considering Louis' actions during the war. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Project 1918. If you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to us here on YouTube and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. The Canadian Tank Museum is expanding and needs your help to make it happen. Please join us as a supporter on Patreon and donate to our museum expansion fund through our website, tankmuseum.ca. Thank you very much for all your support, and come see these two awesome vehicles under restoration in person at our museum.